She was no more than 7, barefoot, trembling, and covered in mud. The little girl stumbled through the rain, clutching a torn teddy bear to her chest as thunder rolled above her. Her tiny feet slapped against the wet pavement, every step desperate, every breath a cry for help. Cars slowed, people stared, but no one moved. No one, except the group of rough, leather-clad bikers standing beside their roaring motorcycles. She didn't care who they were or what danger people said they carried. She ran straight toward them, tears streaming down her face, and screamed the words that froze everyone in their tracks. Please. They're beating my mama. For a heartbeat, the world went silent. And then, everything changed. Before we go on, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of good hearts in unexpected places, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone you love, and subscribe. What happens next will remind you that compassion can live behind the toughest faces. The rain came down harder as the little girl clung to her teddy bear, sobbing uncontrollably. The bikers, members of the Hells Angels, had been taking a short break in the parking lot of a rundown diner off Highway 9. Most people in the small town of Brookfield usually avoided them. Big men, heavy boots, tattoos, leather jackets patched with flames and skulls. But that afternoon, their eyes softened as they looked at the child who could barely breathe through her cries. The man in front, Hank Grizzly Murdoch, crouched down, his grizzled beard dripping rain. "Where's your mama, sweetheart?" he asked, his voice steady but urgent. The girl pointed down the road toward the rusted trailer park by the railroad tracks. "He's hurting her. Please, make him stop." That was all they needed. Hank turned to his men. "Mount up." Engines roared back to life, thunder rolling with them. One of the bikers wrapped his leather jacket around the little girl and placed her carefully on his bike. "Hold on tight, princess," he said softly. And with that, the convoy of steel and compassion tore down the dirt road, kicking up dust and rain in their wake. The trailer park sat forgotten at the edge of town. Rusted doors, cracked windows, the smell of gasoline and despair hanging in the air. The bikers could hear shouting even before they arrived. A man's angry roar, a woman's scream. Hank's jaw clenched. He motioned with his hand, and the men fanned out. One powerful kick shattered the trailer's door. Inside, chaos. A woman lay curled on the floor, her face bruised, eyes swollen shut. A man towered over her with a belt in his hand, his breath thick with alcohol and rage. He turned, startled by the sight of 6 massive men filling the doorway, and in that split second, he realized his mistake. Hank grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the wall. "You think you're tough, beating on women?" His voice was low, dangerous. The man tried to swing, but another biker, Diesel, stepped in and pinned his arms. Within moments, the drunk was on the floor, stripped of his belt and his power. The little girl burst into the room, running straight to her mother. "Mama!" she cried, collapsing into her arms. The woman, trembling, pulled her daughter close, sobbing into her hair. For a few seconds, time froze. The bikers stood there, silent, rain dripping from their jackets, eyes softening at the sight of love and pain intertwined on that dirty floor. Outside, sirens began to wail. Hank had already radioed for help. When the police arrived, they found the Hells Angels standing guard over the woman and her daughter, the abuser on the ground, begging to be taken away. The cops exchanged cautious glances, but said nothing. For once, the bikers weren't the problem. They were the reason the woman was still alive. At the hospital later that night, the little girl, her name was Emma, refused to let go of Hank's hand. The big man sat awkwardly in the waiting room chair, his massive frame out of place among the sterile walls and soft lights. One of the nurses brought Emma hot chocolate, and another offered her a blanket, but she stayed tucked against Hank's side, whispering, "Thank you for saving my mama." The other bikers lingered nearby. They weren't used to staying still, but something about that night felt different. When the doctor finally came out and said Rachel, Emma's mother, would be okay, the men all exhaled together, like a single sigh of relief that carried years of buried emotion. As dawn broke, the town woke to headlines that made everyone stop and think. Hells Angels save local woman and daughter from abuser. The same men people once crossed the street to avoid were now being called heroes. But when reporters showed up, Hank refused to take credit. He just said, "A little girl asked for help." What kind of man turns his back on that? In the following weeks, the bikers kept visiting Rachel and Emma. They fixed the broken door of her trailer, brought food, even helped her get her car running again. Diesel, who had kids of his own, found Emma a used pink bike and tied a ribbon to the handlebar. Every time they stopped by, Emma would come running out shouting, "My angels are here." The town couldn't believe it. People who once whispered about the Hells Angels began nodding respectfully when they passed. The waitress from the diner started leaving out coffee for them on the house. It was as if kindness had cracked open something deep in everyone. A reminder that good and bad don't always look the way you expect. When Rachel was finally strong enough to work again, Hank helped her get a job at that same diner. She started rebuilding her life piece by piece, one smile at a time. And through it all, the bikers were there. Not for fame, not for forgiveness, but simply because they cared. One summer evening, months later, Rachel stood outside her small new home. The sun dipped low over the horizon, casting gold over everything. Down the street, the familiar rumble of engines filled the air. Emma squealed with joy, running to the gate as the Hells Angels rolled by in formation. Hank lifted a hand and gave her a small salute. The little girl waved her teddy bear high, beaming. Rachel stood there, tears glistening in her eyes. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Thank you." They couldn't hear her over the engines, but somehow, Hank looked back and nodded, as if he did. That night, Rachel wrote in her journal, "Sometimes, the people you're most afraid of are the ones sent to protect you. My daughter found angels in black leather." So the next time you see someone and think you already know their story, remember Emma, remember her mama, and remember the men who proved that kindness can roar louder than fear. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe for more real, emotional stories that remind us what humanity truly means. And before you go, tell us in the comments, what's the most unexpected act of kindness you've ever seen? Your story might just inspire someone to believe again, because sometimes heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they ride Harley-Davidsons.